Imagine you are an investigative journalist staring at a glowing computer screen in a dark, silent room. It is late January in the year 2026. The Department of Justice has just dumped the final batch of the Jeffrey Epstein files onto the internet. You are looking at a digital mountain of 3.5 million pages of unredacted secrets. You are searching for financial crimes or political corruption. But your search algorithm suddenly flags a cluster of words that makes your blood run completely cold. The words are scattered across different confidential emails and private intelligence reports. The algorithm connects the name Epstein with the words black kids and the descendants of slaves. And connecting them all is the word hunting. A horrifying narrative begins to form in your mind. It is a story so dark that it overshadows all the other crimes associated with the disgraced billionaire. You start to piece together a nightmare scenario about a literal human safari. You imagine the tropical darkness of Little St. James. You picture the dense vegetation and the steep volcanic cliffs of the private island. You envision a twisted game played by the absolute most powerful men on Earth. The digital fragments suggest they were not just trafficking victims for sexual abuse. The data hints that they were importing historically traumatized people to the island to hunt them for sport. It sounds like a dystopian horror movie, but the evidence is sitting right there on your hard drive. You dig deeper into the files to find the source of this nightmare. You uncover an email sent to Epstein by a British woman named Shelley Lewis. Ghislaine Maxwell previously identified Lewis as one of Epstein's girls from the late 90s. Lewis sent Epstein an informational article about a very specific and vulnerable group of people. The article is about the Gullah Geechee community. You read the background information on these people. They are a unique ethnic group living in the coastal areas of the American South. They are the direct descendants of enslaved Africans. Because they lived in deep geographic isolation on islands, they managed to preserve their ancient West African traditions and language. They are a community that survived the ultimate historical trauma. But Epstein and his circle did not view them with historical respect. They viewed them as a resource. Lewis attached a chillingly brief comment to the article she sent to the billionaire. She simply asked him where to find new help. This single sentence reveals a terrifying neo-colonial mindset. A community that survived slavery was being actively scouted as a pool of cheap and easily coerced labor for a global human trafficking network. You imagine these people being lured from their isolated homes with promises of lucrative domestic work. You imagine them boarding private jets and disappearing into the Caribbean fortress. Then you find the second piece of the puzzle. It is a series of dense, philosophical emails from July 2016. Epstein is communicating with a German cognitive scientist named Joscha Bach. Epstein is already a convicted sex offender at this point, but he is still deeply connected to the Silicon Valley elite. You read the emails and feel a deep sense of disgust. Bach is laying out a deeply racist theory of human evolution. He tells Epstein that black children in the United States have a slower cognitive development. He uses outdated biological determinism to explain this. Bach claims that Europeans evolved to understand seasonal patterns for agriculture, but he claims that Africans genetically adapted to a lifestyle based on hunting and running. Epstein eagerly agrees with this racist pseudoscience. He replies to Bach that African music is completely primitive. He argues that human cultures are rigidly locked into their genetic biology. The conversation then takes a terrifying turn toward human engineering. Bach actually suggests using a genetic switch to alter the neural development of black people. He proposes artificial methods to make them smarter. You sit back in your chair as the horror washes over you. The search algorithm has combined the Shelley Lewis email about the descendants of slaves with the Joscha Bach emails about a hunting lifestyle. The internet has already caught wind of these keywords. A massive rumor is exploding across social media. The public believes that Epstein was literally hunting African Americans on his island. The picture is vivid and terrifying. A billionaire obsessed with genetics and social dominance, stalking vulnerable minorities through the tropical brush. But as an investigator, you cannot rely on algorithmic assumptions. You have to verify the context. You run a massive linguistic analysis on the entire 3.5 million page database. You track every single instance of the word hunting, and slowly, the literal physical nightmare begins to dissolve. You find a file detailing an expedition with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kennedy joined Epstein on a trip to a Native American reservation in South Dakota. They were not hunting humans. They were hunting for fossilized dinosaur bones. You find a folder of unpublished photographs. The pictures show Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell wearing traditional outdoor gear. They are standing next to Prince Andrew at the royal estates of Balmoral and Sandringham. They are engaging in the traditional aristocratic sport of hunting wild animals. You find transcripts of a famous biologist named Richard Dawkins. Dawkins is complaining about the legal system. He metaphorically calls the prosecution of Epstein a witch hunt. He even uses the phrase, "not as black as painted." You find chat logs from right-wing political radicals. They are aggressively talking about hunting down the satanic pedophile elite. You realize the truth. The story about the physical human safari is a digital ghost. It is a false narrative created by broken algorithms and a panicked public. The internet stripped away all the context and smashed unrelated words together to create a monster. Yosha Bach later publishes a defense calling the public reaction a media storm. He claims his views have changed and that judging people by race is a despicable act. The literal hunt never happened. But you do not feel any relief, because as you read through the rest of the documents, you realize the actual truth is infinitely worse. Epstein was not hunting minorities with a rifle in the jungle. He was hunting them with limitless capital, institutional power, and racial pseudoscience. He was building a philosophical slaughterhouse. You uncover the massive financial trail left by the billionaire. You see that he used his fortune to buy the loyalty of the greatest minds in the world. He funded exclusive intellectual salons through the Edge Foundation. He poured money into the Harvard program for evolutionary dynamics. He sponsored advanced artificial intelligence research at the MIT Media Lab. He was not doing this out of charity. He was doing this to legitimize his own sociopathy. He wanted academic proof that his predatory behavior was a natural biological right. In an email to billionaires like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, he explicitly stated that biology is based on deceit. He believed that natural predators have a biological mandate to consume the energy of their victims. You read the transcripts of his private science retreats on the island. You see the elite discussing the future of humanity as if they are playing a strategy game. The conversations with Yosha Bach go far beyond simple racism. They enter the realm of apocalyptic eugenics. They coldly discuss the systemic benefits of mass executions. Bach compares killing the elderly and infirm to simply removing unused neurons from a brain. They talk about global climate change not as a tragedy, but as a useful tool. Bach calls it a beneficial forest fire for the earth that could solve overpopulation. He describes fascism as a ruthlessly efficient machine that eliminates evolutionary weakness. Epstein encourages this radical social Darwinism. Epstein praises the brutal class structures of ancient Rome. He longs for a society where the upper classes breed more, and social mobility is strictly determined by genetic intelligence. You discover his connections to the long-termism movement in Silicon Valley. You find financial links to organizations associated with Nick Bostrom. Bostrom is an Oxford philosopher who openly fears that educated people are having fewer children. Bostrom worries humanity will evolve into a less intelligent but highly fertile species. He actively supports using intrauterine selective breeding to artificially raise the intelligence of the global population. Epstein helped fund the World Transhumanist Association to push these exact ideas. You follow the money across the Atlantic Ocean. You find a massive ideological network in the United Kingdom funded by American tech billionaires like Peter Thiel. This network systematically normalizes white identity politics and scientific racism under the disguise of academic free speech. You read about Toby Young founding the Free Speech Union. You find a speech where Young publicly defends the Pioneer Fund. This is an American endowment with direct ties to Nazi ideology that funds research into racial IQ differences. You see this same network helping Charles Murray speak at Cambridge University. Murray is the author of The Bell Curve and is classified by civil rights groups as a white nationalist extremist. Murray uses fake statistics to argue that black people and poor people are genetically inferior. You sit in the dark room and the true scale of the horror finally crushes you. The physical island is empty now, but the ideological machine Epstein helped build is still running perfectly. He funded a self-proclaimed cognitive aristocracy that believes vulnerable people are nothing more than biological material. They view marginalized communities as a statistical error that needs to be genetically edited out of the future. They believe their wealth gives them the divine right to guide human evolution. The financial system completely protected this monstrous project. You read the Senate investigations showing how billionaire Leon Black paid Epstein $170 million. You see how a major American bank intentionally hid these massive suspicious transfers from the Treasury Department for 7 years. The banks ignored federal anti-money laundering laws because the profit was too high. They processed hundreds of millions of dollars for a convicted predator. When the files were finally released, the politicians did not care about the truth. They weaponized the raw data to destroy their rivals. The tragedy of the human trafficking victims was completely ignored during the partisan warfare. The Department of Justice failed completely. They rushed the publication and accidentally released unredacted photographs of the victims. They published the names and home addresses of the survivors. The government proved it could not protect the vulnerable even after the monster was dead. You turn off your monitors, but the darkness of the room offers no comfort. The rumor of the physical hunt was a lie, but it served as a perfect distraction. While the internet panicked over a fictional human safari in the jungle, the real predators were sitting in corporate boardrooms and university halls. They are still there. They possess limitless capital, and they are quietly constructing the technological future of humanity on a foundation of eugenics and racial pseudoscience. The hunt never ended. It just evolved.